Hello and welcome to the trade setup. In this video we are looking at Lumen Technologies, a very promising chart we have here, and this was a stock analysis request from one of the members, and I wanted to let you know that anyone can make these requests and I try to cover as many as possible. However, these days with the large amount of requests that we get, it's not really achievable. So we do need to kind of prioritize here and focus on the high demand stocks, to focus on the actionable trade setups we can identify and on the member requests. Now, I have also deduced from some comments that a lot of people don't realize how much content we provide here, and we post over 100 videos a month regularly. So if you have a stock analysis you would like to see, I recommend you to search it on the channel first, because if it is a popular stock, if it is a popular company, there is a very good chance we have already covered it, possibly in multiple videos. Now, on this chart, we have an extremely promising structure, even on the larger time frame, where it might not be the nicest, but we have here a potential initial 5-wave move to the upside that could perhaps be tracked in a couple of ways. However, I wouldn't necessarily trust this to be an impulse, and I would be looking for this to be a wave 1 up within a leading diagonal, and I would still be looking for a wave 2 correction and extensions in a follow-up wave 3. Now, for this expectation, we have broken our area of support, and while it is rather suggestive of a follow-up breakdown, the follow-through of the structure that has formed afterwards from the local low within this wave 2 has allowed this structure to become much more promising, because we can now track an internal area of support for continuation to higher prices. I wouldn't trust it to go once again deep into this area, the larger area of support, and still look for continuation to higher prices, but if it manages to build up on the internal structure that we have within this area, I would be open, I would be even inclined to believe that we would be looking for a very nice structure to even form afterwards. So once again, we are not trusting this to even revisit the area around the local low within the wave 2. Even the break below the 78.6% retracement, we are not even waiting for that for a signal that this structure is more likely to fail. Now, in this wave 2 correction, we have nothing particularly special. We have just an A, B, C pattern that unfolded within the wave C. We didn't even get the last leg to the downside. It seems a bit incomplete, but it's not uncommon either for this to be the case within such corrective patterns. If we want, we can even track it as a potential WXY. Doesn't really matter exactly. I would consider this correction complete. Sure, we have pushed below the area of support, but we have also managed to create a very good reaction to the upside, even above the area of support. Now, in this internal structure, this is actually what makes this chart even more interesting. We have a potential initial 5-wave move to the upside. But before we get into the count, I wanted to briefly mention our channel newsletter, for which you can find the sign up link in the description. It is completely free and you get access to our monthly top picks. This stock might be one of them, and we might provide a non-video update for it when the time comes for the newsletter. Yeah, this is actually looking like an extremely promising stock. Now, it might be for a longer term play, but I wouldn't sleep on it. Additionally, if you enjoy the content and you want to support us, you can check out the channel membership. The link is in the description as well, or you can click the join button and you get access to a couple of cool perks, including additional content. You will get access to videos that I cannot really post on the channel due to the poor performance, but stocks and assets I believe are still worth looking at. So far, we only have one video, and it is on gold, an asset I consider very underrated by many traders and investors. Now, going back to the chart, as I was saying, we have here a potential initial 5-wave move to the upside, but I would actually like to still see another high within this area before we would form a more substantial top. This is actually very much in line with our broader market expectations, where we wouldn't be looking for the larger bull trend to stop yet. Across many stocks, we actually see another high even as expected to form. Yeah, it is a preference across many stocks that we do form another high before we are looking for a large correction. However, once that comes, we would have our initial 5-wave move to the upside complete within this structure. So in this pattern, I'm tracking this as an impulse within the wave 3. I cannot really track it as anything else really. And within this pattern, I would even have to consider that within the wave 1, we have formed internally a 5-wave structure within this area. Not the prettiest count, but I wouldn't overthink it either. And after our wave 2 correction, where we did manage to hold our area of support, we have extended in this beautiful impulse in a wave 3. Now, in the wave 4, once again, we haven't fully survived and held the area of support cleanly. We have broken below the 50% retracement, the last level for such an interpretation, but only ever so briefly, and we did extend to higher prices afterwards. Now, keep in mind, we are tracking this 5th wave to form another wave 5 internally, because we are tracking an impulse within this structure. Even though we are looking at this pattern as an ending diagonal, I would still expect to form here a 5th wave before looking for a more substantial top within this as a wave 1. So, once again, ending diagonal, we are looking for a wave 4 correction, and the area of support we will need to track for such an expectation would go all the way down to the 61.8% retracement. Once again, we have broken below the 50% retracement briefly last week. But since this is a diagonal structure, we have broken really only below the 50% retracement. The area of support actually extends all the way down to the $5.5 level. Now, keep in mind, if we break the 61.8% retracement, that would imply a more substantial top to already be in place. Even if we fail to extend in the next wave to the upside, I would still be able to look at this as a potential 5th wave complete. I would perhaps need to consider this as a slightly different pattern to the upside, but in the end, I wouldn't overthink it. From a weekly perspective, we do have here divergences, we do have here a very clearly defined structure in this 5-wave pattern, and I would still be interested in tracking a potential 1-2 setup. Now, once again, as long as we hold here the $5.5 level, I'm still looking for direct continuation to higher prices, but if we fail to hold it, we can track the large area of support for continuation to higher prices for a potential wave 2. Now, we will be tracking this in white until we actually complete the pattern in yellow, but here we are watching the levels between the $4.2 all the way down to the $1.4 level. And it might take a while before this correction would complete, but once we have here our initial wave 1 up and a wave 2 correction, we can be looking with very high probabilities for continuation in at least another 5-wave move to the upside. Because from a large time frame perspective, even if this is not to form out a wave 3, even if this is a larger downtrend forming, we have an initial 5-wave move to the upside. This is suggesting to us that with high probabilities, after a 3-wave correction, we should expect at least another 5-wave move to the upside, even if it is within a zigzag pattern in an ABC structure. We are still looking to form another high on this chart, even if we were tracking this as a bearish 1-2 setup, as a 1-2 structure. And it's not really a setup because corrective and it doesn't seem complete either. Now, against the $1.4 level, I'm looking on this chart for continuation to higher prices, but below this last level of support, I wouldn't wait for the break below the wave 2 bottom for a signal this structure has failed. I would be extremely cautious. I would be prepared for even a potentially direct descent to continue within this area. From a large time frame perspective, we aren't necessarily looking at this structure with strong trust, but from a smaller time frame perspective, this structure does seem actually quite promising. Now, for an area of resistance, we could be tracking here something quite generic, yeah, probably something like the levels between the $3.8 all the way up to the $20.5. We can notice that we have pushed here in this wave 3 perfectly into the 61.8% retracement. Previously, in the extension within the internal wave 3, you have pushed into the 50% retracement before getting here a tiny correction. But yeah, nothing out of the ordinary. It is quite a generic area of resistance. It's not something that would suggest to me strongly that we should expect continuation to even lower prices, but definitely a break above the $20.4 level, $20.5 let's say, would signal to us with even higher likelihood that we would be looking for a breakout. I wouldn't expect, however, to get there within this next 5th wave. I wouldn't expect to even reach those price points because we are looking to form a 5th wave within an ending diagonal, which is a larger 5th wave of wave 1. So nothing particularly bullish is expected to still form within this area. I'm not necessarily ruling that out. We can always see extensions. It might be that this wave 3 is still forming and this would be a wave C forming to the upside instead, but it's not going to be a reliable pattern. And what I find more likely within this fifth wave is to top around the region of these highs before we extended in this very strong push to the downside. If we want to look, we can even check out the larger time frame. It is very much in line with these highs as well, but I'm watching primarily the $14, $15.5 area, something like that, for this fifth wave to form a more substantial top. I wouldn't have high expectations for this next wave to the upside. Remember, we might even be looking at a top to already be in place. We might not even get it, but for that, I'm waiting for the signal, the break below the $5.5 level. Now, in this internal pattern, we already see signs of a potential completion of the correction. So first, in terms of proportions, in this wave 2, we already have similar proportions with what we have in the wave 4. We have already a 3-wave pattern in place. I would even go ahead to consider this a potential A, B, C structure where, once again, in the wave C, we didn't manage to form a clear fifth wave within this area. This correction does look incomplete. We might even be looking instead at a WXY pattern, but I would definitely not overthink it. Now, let me even remove this orange area of resistance. It's just in the way of us seeing more clearly what we are tracking within this area. But here, in this correction, in the wave 4, we have first pushed into the 38.2% retracement. Very nicely, the ideal target for the wave 4, we have created tiny additional structural support within this area, and we have only formed a correction to higher prices in the next wave to the upside in a 3-wave move, and we have extended into the 50% retracement afterwards. Right now, I would be looking for the fifth wave to have already started unfolding. I would have normally even looked for a more clear 5-wave pattern to form within this area, but we have broken the relevant internal levels of resistance for a wave 4 correction. So right now I'm actually looking for the next wave to the upside to already unfold, although keep in mind we are tracking an ending diagonal, meaning that I'm only expecting to build an ABC structure for this fifth wave to be considered complete. For an area of resistance we could track, it's something really generic I would be focusing on. We are watching here the levels between the $7.9 all the way up to the $10.4. In terms of support for this extension to the upside, we might even be able to identify an initial 5-wave pattern. We have here a tiny 1, 2, 3rd, 4th, and a 5th we can track within this area. In this case, we can track an internal area of support. We might be building an initial ABC structure or an initial 5-wave move within a wave A, an impulse within a wave A as a 1, 2, 3rd, 4th, and a 5th. If we manage to build here this as a wave A, I will be looking afterwards for a wave B correction and a wave C to take us within at least another 5-wave move to the upside, where we might form a top within this 5th wave. But keep in mind, this is not guaranteed to form the initial 5-wave move to the upside. We might only be getting here an ABC structure itself. It might form the larger wave A, we get then a wave B, but it would be only after a 3-wave pattern, so nothing highly suggestive of continuation to higher prices afterwards, especially if we extend into new highs. Now, in terms of support, once again, we are watching this area with the levels between the $7.4 all the way down to the $6.5. We can even track a potential initial 5-wave move to the upside with a count here, but if we break below the $6.5 level, I would be rather prepared for maybe an extension of this wave 4 correction. Ultimately, I don't see this smaller time frame as a high probability area, but considering it is within an internal area of support we are tracking here, and we have the larger area of support on top, could be something interesting. Nothing I would consider highly reliable though, and personally I believe it might be best to zoom out and focus on the larger time frame, focus on our white area of support, focus on the actual 1-2 setup. This is going to be what will provide the most potential and probably amongst the strongest returns, because we are expecting to follow through afterwards with a wave 3 of a larger wave 3. And for now, these are the levels, this is the trade setup. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, don't forget to subscribe and let me know what else you want me to cover, and I'll do my best to do that in the days and weeks ahead. And until then, I hope you have a nice day, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye bye.